Welcome across America to U.S. Law Shield's webinar live, COVID-19 and important and critical gun law updates. I'll be your host for this show. My name is Sam Malone. I'm in Houston, Texas, and a proud member of U.S. Law Shield. It's legal defense for your self-defense. If you collect firearms, if you carry and embrace 2A, maybe you're a collector. Whatever you need, U.S. Law Shield. And the great thing is, throughout our webinar tonight across America, hop on the website, uslawshield.com/defend, and join. The great thing is, you'll have 24-hour attorney-answered hotlines for your questions. I mean, you could ask your neighbor Joe, or go on down and ask somebody at the burger place, or get it from an attorney, an independent program attorney with U.S. Law Shield in your state. We've got a lot of updates on our broadcast. What we're going to do is hop around the country. We'll start where I am in Texas, visit independent program attorneys in Colorado, Georgia, Virginia, Florida, and see how these states of emergencies and cities, counties, and states are affecting us 2A folks. Let's start in Texas. Edwin Walker is joining us, independent program attorney in the great Lone Star State. Mr. Walker, welcome to U.S. Law Shield live across America.
Well, thank you, Sam. Thanks for having me.
All right, give us an update. What has changed for law-abiding 2A folks like us? What do we need to know, Mr. Walker?
Well, since the last time we spoke, Texas has gone pretty much the way that we thought it would, with its current pro-firearm, pro-self-defense administration. A lot of local governments were either ambiguous at best, hostile at worst, to gun stores staying open. And so a state rep actually wrote to the AG for an opinion. The AG issued an opinion that said that state law, the state preemption law, still applies even in this state of emergency that we're in. The state preemption law still applies, that the mayors and county commissioners cannot shut down gun stores by declaring them non-essential. So essentially what that did was the AG's office said that the state law prohibits that. The governor also came out and clarified that gun stores were essential. And of course, with regard to just simply carrying a firearm, you may not need to go out and get a new one, although we always believe it's always time to get a new one. But you may have a complete collection. You may not need a new one. You're wondering about carrying. And fortunately, I'd like to reiterate that there is a federal law prohibiting federal employees from disarming people. Also, many states, including Texas, have laws that specifically state that the police do not have authority to disarm somebody who is otherwise lawfully carrying, simply because of the existence of a statewide state of emergency, or a state of emergency, or a stay-home order, or whatever flavor of the month they want to call it, an order that says that people are under more heightened scrutiny by the police. That does not include, that may include other things, in which we really don't know what those are now, but we know that it certainly does not include an individual's right to carry a firearm.
Love it. So we're in Texas. That's where I am. Mr. Walker is an independent program attorney with U.S. Law Shield. So no matter what you may read on the internet, nothing has changed in the great state of Texas when it comes to carrying concealed. Yes, Mr. Walker?
That's correct. And just to reiterate, because there was a law passed last legislative session that may have caused a bit of confusion for folks, which states that people are allowed to carry, who don't have a license to carry, are allowed to carry handguns during a state of emergency evacuation. That law was passed last year, and obviously that law contemplated our natural disasters, hurricanes, floods, fires, etc. Whenever they're being asked to evacuate, people without license to carry would be allowed to carry handguns. I just want to reiterate to folks out there that may be watching, that does not apply. That law, whatever you may have heard, does not apply in this situation, because there is no disaster declaration that includes an evacuation order. And so that law saying that people can carry handguns even without licenses can carry, that's only in times of evacuation or returning from evacuation. Obviously, nobody has been asked to evacuate any place under this order, so that law doesn't apply. So all the laws that exist prior to these orders going into effect that state that if you have a license to carry, you can carry your handgun concealed anywhere you want, except a statutorily prohibited place. You can carry it openly if it's in a belt or shoulder holster. And of course, there's no restriction on carrying long guns, except for places that are specifically prohibited in Texas Penal Code 4603. You would not be able to carry there, or a place prohibited by federal law as well. So basically, whatever you knew about carrying before these orders still apply now after the orders.
Love it. Independent program attorney Edwin Walker with us. Greetings from Orlando online, Ingram, Texas. We have Fremont, Ohio. Good to have you aboard. Help, we're in California. We'll get around the country and help you. By the way, independent program attorney Edwin Walker, he's in Texas, so he can answer these questions. We have, where I'm in Houston, in Harris County, kind of a stay home, stay safe ruling where they said only essential jobs, people with essential jobs could go out. You were a first responder, you're stocking shelves. But if I get pulled over here in Texas, Mr. Walker, and you're an independent program attorney, and the cop says, where you going? I don't know, do I have to tell him? Is it any of his business? It's a stay home, stay safe order from the county and the city. What do you recommend I do?
Well, keep in mind that even in states of emergency, even under these orders, and like I said, they go by many different names, you don't lose your constitutional rights. Okay, so you don't. There's nothing. At no point are we ever in jeopardy of losing our constitutional rights. I guess if we're under military occupation from a foreign power, perhaps. Obviously, we are so far from that, we really don't even need to contemplate it. But you still have your First Amendment rights, you have your Second Amendment rights. And of course, when dealing with the police, it's very, very important to remember your Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. That is your right to be free from an unreasonable seizure. That is your right to be free from an unreasonable search. And that is your right to not be compelled to give any information against yourself. And so if they stop you, the police still have to have reasonable belief that you're committing some sort of crime. That would be, obviously if they stopped you for a traffic violation, if you were speeding, or they stopped you for trespassing. For example, they closed the parks this weekend because they were worried about large gatherings of folks for Easter, and so they closed the park. They could do that. They have the authority to set specific times and open and close parks. So if you were trespassing by being in a public park, obviously the police can detain you and ask you questions. Still not required to answer those questions, but they could definitely stop you and ask you. If you're out in your car traveling, they could stop you if you're committing already committing a traffic violation. So you change lanes without a signal, you're speeding, you run a red light, those sorts of things. They can't just randomly stop you on the basis of saying, I wonder if that guy is an essential occupation. Or, what's most important is we're still allowed to go to essential services. And so we're still allowed to go pick up, carry out at restaurants, and go grocery shopping, and go to Home Depot, any of the other, go to a gun store, go to any of these other things. And so just randomly, a police officer does not have the authority to just randomly decide to stop people for the purposes of questioning why they are out and about. And so you still retain your rights to not be stopped without reasonable suspicion. You still have your rights not to be detained, not to be arrested unless they have probable cause. And you certainly, even if they do catch you doing something, you always retain your right, your Fifth Amendment right, to not answer questions.
Edwin Walker, independent program attorney here in Texas with me. I'm Sam Malone. You're watching our event, COVID-19, Critical Gun Law Updates with U.S. Law Shield. One more, and by the way, as you're leaving your comments, members of the U.S. Law Shield family are trying to answer as quickly as possible. Diego, thank you for stopping by. Thanks, Richard in New Jersey. Good to have you aboard. Eagle in Massachusetts. One more here in Texas, Mr. Walker. Have gun laws changed about private gun sales? So I want to sell my semi-automatic to my buddy. Has anything changed here in Texas since the COVID-19 states of emergencies?
Yeah, and in which gun sales, gun sales occupy a very interesting position in the law. Obviously, most people do buy their guns through FFL licensed dealers, which we've already said the local governments do not have authority to affect or close down those types of sales. But Texas is one of the states that allows private transaction in firearms as long as it's not done for a commercial purpose. As long as the person, both people are legally allowed to have guns, there's no violation of federal law, no violation of state law. Obviously, state law says that you can't sell a firearm to somebody that you know is prohibited person. So if you know that your next door neighbor's a felon, you can't sell him a gun. If you know he's been convicted of a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence, if somebody from out of state shows up, if you put an ad in the paper and somebody with a Louisiana license plate shows up, can't sell to that person. So as long as you're doing a non-commercial intrastate transfer of a firearm, intrastate means that both the buyer and seller are residents of the same state, then that has not been affected by this order. You can still engage in that sort of activity as long as you comply with all the other laws that affect that particular activity.
Got it. Edwin Walker, independent program attorney, U.S. Law Shield. Become a member, and you'll have access 24/7 to an attorney-answered hotline, uslawshield.com/defend. Mr. Walker, as always, thank you for joining us on our U.S. Law Shield broadcast across America.
Sam, I always enjoy speaking with you.
Good to have you aboard. We'll
and
continue
to
with
our
COVID.
and to our U.S. Law Shield members.
Yes, thank you. And keep the comments coming, by the way. How's this? Quick break. Let's visit the great state of Colorado next. After that, we'll jump over and say hi to Florida and Virginia and others. You're watching our COVID-19 update, critical gun laws you need to know with U.S. Law Shield. Welcome back to our U.S. Law Shield live across America, COVID-19 and critical gun law updates that you need to know. I'm Sam Malone, proud U.S. Law Shield member in Texas. We're going to try to get back to Colorado in a second. In the meantime, let's go to Florida. What a great state. Independent program attorney David Katz is standing by. Mr. Katz, welcome to our U.S. Law Shield Live webinar across America. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Sam. I'm doing well.
Looking sharp, sir. Looking sharp. All right.
Thanks.
So how have the COVID-19 states of emergencies affected your state in Florida as an independent program attorney?
Sure. Well, first of all, we're under a stay-at-home order. So if you're not an essential worker, you're not supposed to be leaving your home except to go and get essential items. When it comes to firearms, unfortunately, in our state, you have to have a concealed weapon firearm license in order to carry a firearm. And they've pretty much suspended the processing of those applications because people who are applying for them for the first time can't get fingerprinted anywhere.
Okay, so I legally go to purchase a gun. You can't get fingerprinted anywhere, so they suspended the process?
So you can still purchase a firearm. You don't need a carry license in Florida to purchase a firearm. But if you want to carry it around for protection, instead of just keeping it in your car or in your own home, you've got to have what we call a CWFL. And in order to get a CWFL, which is our concealed license, you have to get fingerprinted. And
so I want to travel around. I don't want to carry it. Let's say in Florida, I just want to leave it in my car, Mr. Katz. What would you advise if I was calling you on the 24/7 attorney answered hotline at U.S. Law Shield? I just want to put it in the car and I want to drive around because I'm going to visit people.
So you're allowed to keep a firearm in your car in Florida without a license. As long as you're over 18 years of age and you're not an otherwise prohibited person, you don't need a concealed carry license to keep it in your car. However, without a concealed carry license, it has to be securely encased, which means either, like in a glove box or in a closed container.
Got it. All right, let me ask you about the sheltering in place orders that you have. Anything different down there in Florida, Mr. Katz? If they are telling you to stay in, any kind of penalty? Are people afraid to get in their cars and just travel in Florida?
So unfortunately, I think a lot of people are defying the orders. In Seminole County, where I live, The boat ramps were opened until I believe about Thursday or Friday of last week, when on one of our lakes they had about 30 boats all next to each other and people climbing from boat to boat and having a good old time. So they closed all the boat ramps because people weren't acting what I would call responsibly.
That's crazy. Now, are they also respecting and having reciprocity? Let's say I'm from Texas and I want to come down to Florida. I just might. And I bring my LTC, my license to carry. Are all the reciprocity and reciprocal deals still in place in Florida?
So in Florida, our laws haven't changed because of the state of emergency. If we had reciprocity with you before, we have reciprocity with you now. And all of our carry laws are the same. They didn't actually suspend processing our concealed weapons licenses. It's just you can't get fingerprinted because all the agencies that do the fingerprinting aren't allowing people to come in. They want to keep their employees safe too.
Amazing. David Katz, he's an independent program attorney in Florida. And likewise, as I asked Mr. Walker in Texas, if police pull you over and they say, hey, are you an essential employee? And you're like, nah, just out for a spin. Do you have to tell them what you do, where you're going? What do you recommend for U.S. Law Shield members in Florida?
So look, obviously we want everyone to stay healthy. There's going to be probably quite a few constitutional challenges to these stay-in-place or shelter-at-home orders when this is all over. Right now, our courts probably wouldn't hear your motions anyway on the issue because they're only doing what they call critical or emergency hearings in the courts anyway. But for now, if you can obey the orders, obey them and keep yourself and your family safe. There'll be time later where we can fight over whether or not this was constitutional.
Outstanding. David Katz, independent program attorney in Florida. And remember, if you're a U.S. Law Shield member and you're in Florida, you also have 24/7 access to attorney answered hotline. Mr. Katz, I know you're super busy down there. Thank you for taking the time to join us on our U.S. Law Shield webinar, Coast to Coast.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Sam.
Great to have you aboard. Let's take a quick break. What do you say we visit? I don't know, you want to visit Virginia? We can do that. We can try Colorado again. And other states. That's what you get when you're a member. Join now, uslawshield.com/defend. It's legal defense for your the ability to carry, okay? It's about your defense, and it's about having access to these attorneys. You're probably going to read things online. You're probably going to get some goofy email. And where do you get the truth and where do you get the best answers for your state? U.S. Law Shield. Back in a second, Coast to Coast, right after this. Keep those questions coming in. They're being answered as quickly as possible by the members of U.S. Law Shield. I'm Sam Malone in Houston, Texas. There was some glitch in the wire, like a gremlin or something. I don't know what it was. Kept us from going to Colorado to visit our great friend, seriously a good friend, Doug Richards, independent program attorney in the Rocky Mountain State. Doug, how are you?
Technical problem. I don't mean to ruin your rhythm.
It's live. We
Yeah.
go with the flow. Good to have you aboard. Doug's actually a good friend. Love seeing him when I visit Colorado. Looking sharp, buddy, with the mountain beard.
It's my COVID look. It's all
The
right.
COVID look. All right, COVID-19 and important updates for 2A folks like us. What has changed, if any, in Colorado, Doug Richards?
Well, like everywhere else, we're under a strict shelter-in-place or stay-at-home order. My office, we're in our 5th week of working remotely from home, so we're getting used to this new normal. In terms of Second Amendment issues, the biggest problem has been for concealed carry permit holders or those trying to get concealed carry permits. The CBI, as of last month, had received twice the amount of applicants that they had in March of 2019. And as I understand it, there's a backlog of over 5,000 applications. So I know that some of the sheriffs, because in Colorado, each individual sheriff is responsible for issuing concealed carry permits. I know some of the sheriffs are considering issuing emergency temporary permits. I haven't spoken to anybody that's received one of those. There's a strict set of circumstances you have to meet in order to qualify for those. And I'm not sure if the sheriffs are relaxing those or not.
So it's a typical backlog. Bottom line is what, Doug, you're the independent program attorney in Colorado. If you don't have the license or such, don't push it.
Yeah, if you don't have a license, the nice thing about Colorado as opposed to other states is you don't have to have a concealed carry permit to have a firearm with you. You can have your firearm in your vehicle at all times. You don't even have to have it locked up. You can even carry it concealed on your person as long as you're in your vehicle, even without a license. So the only issue you have is if you go onto school property. You have to have you can't go on a school property even if you have the gun in your car. But right now, that's not going to be an issue for anybody. There's not a reason to go on a school property. So you can take your firearm with you wherever you go. If you want to leave your vehicle, you can carry it open in Colorado, although I really don't recommend it. There are certain areas such as Denver and Boulder that prohibit carrying open, but that is something that you are permitted to do in Colorado.
Got it. Independent program attorney Doug Richards in Colorado. What do I need to know? Should I want to visit? Should I don't know, I just want to get in the car and drive somewhere, and I come to Colorado. Are my LTC from Texas, is that still recognized? Has anything changed with that?
Yeah, so nothing's changed in reciprocity laws. So the laws have not changed at all. So if you come to Colorado from Texas, you would have reciprocity. Be sure to give us a call if you're coming here so we can check that for you. The main thing that you want to make sure you do if you come to Colorado is do not bring a firearm here. Do not bring magazines here that accept more than 15 rounds. That is something that is now illegal in Colorado. You can be charged with a Class 2 misdemeanor if you are found to be in violation of that law. So if you're coming to Colorado during this time or any time, make sure that you comply or that you're following our magazine restrictions.
Okay, I did not know that. So I come from Texas, I want to visit Colorado. It's essential, COVID-19 or not, do not have a magazine that can hold 15 or more rounds.
More than 15. So 15 is fine. So anything more than 15. So you can do 15 plus 1 in the chamber, but you cannot have a magazine that takes 16 rounds.
Got it. Now, during this COVID-19 emergency and gun laws, what about the private sale of firearms? I want to buy, a Beretta or Springfield Armory from you, a semi-automatic 9mm, just between us. Has COVID-19 affected that?
So between you and I, a private party sale, you would need an FFL in Colorado. And as I understand it, those are really backlogged. If you are transferring from an immediate family member, like parent to child, or between spouses, or between siblings, you do not need an FFL, and you'd be able to do that sort of transfer. But if it's a situation where you need an FFL, you still need to go through an FFL for the transfer. I know that all of the firearms stores have been deemed essential businesses, so you should be able to call your favorite firearms dealer, and they can process that for you. But again, they'll have to check with CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, to do the background check. And as I understand it, as I mentioned at the top of this segment, they have a huge backlog right now. So you have to be patient.
And by the way, in Colorado, how are the gun stores handling? Has there been a big surge, for instance, in Texas? Boy, was there a surge on semi-automatics, the $500, the $600, the $700 version of the 9mm out there. Big run as well in Colorado.
Yeah, I have not been into a gun store, but all of the reports I've read are that pretty much anything that you're looking for is going to be sold out. You may have a better chance at finding toilet paper than a Glock 9mm in Colorado, but I'm sure that they're going to be bringing in another stock of the firearms here soon. So certainly keep your eyes open and keep shopping.
Excellent. Independent program attorney Doug Richards, best dressed man in the business. Sporting the blue suit and the good-looking tie. Technical issues aside, great to have you with us.
Yep, great to see you again, Sam.
You got it, Doug. Be careful out there. He's an independent program attorney in Colorado. So we've got Texas, we've got Colorado, we visited Florida. Up next, we'll go to Virginia. And remember, when you're a member of U.S. Law Shield, 24/7 access to the independent program attorneys and attorney answered hotline. So if you see something goofy online, about a ban on guns or confiscation of guns during this COVID-19 states of emergency, you can pick up the phone and call. That's what we'll do next. You're watching us across America, COVID-19 and gun laws, critical gun laws you need to know with U.S. Law Shield. And we're back. I'm Sam Malone in Texas on our U.S. Law Shield webinar live across America, COVID-19 and critical gun law updates that you need to know about. Let's visit Virginia. Gil Ambler is there. Gil is a independent program attorney with U.S. Law Shield as well. Gil, welcome to our webinar across America.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
All right, let's get to Virginia. What has the COVID-19 states of emergencies done to your gun laws in that state?
Fortunately, we do have strong protections in Virginia. Our Virginia Emergency Services and Disaster Law includes a provision that prevents the governor during times of an emergency from putting in place laws that impact your Second Amendment rights, as well as our constitutional rights in our state constitution here in Virginia, found at Article 1, Section 13. Now, these laws protect anywhere that is not, the only exception to these laws is a place that is a shelter-in-place ordered by the governor. This was a provision that was used during Lobby Day in January, as many Virginians will remember. Now, fortunately, with people sheltering at home, this provision is not coming into play. It's not something that we need to worry about. Now, what the governor has done is he has closed indoor gun ranges.
Okay, explain. Well, get to the shelter-in-place in a second. So the governor, who's very anti-2A, closes indoor gun ranges. Why would you close an indoor gun range?
Frankly, I think there may just be a lack of understanding of how indoor gun ranges work. I mean, indoor gun ranges have fantastic ventilation systems, filtration systems that are very, very effective. Probably a far safer place than going out to a Walmart or a Costco or something like that. Unfortunately, they've been closed to civilians. They're still open for police usage. And so we're seeing the division here between what law-abiding civilians get to do and what law enforcement gets to do.
Okay, recap. This has not happened in Texas. Indoor gun ranges in Virginia are closed to civilians like you and I, but they're open for law enforcement. That's what's going on?
That's what we call double standard. Yes, that's what's going on.
Wow. And let's go back and visit that shelter in place and gun provisions, because I'm not aware of this one. And this is why, folks, it's so good to have independent program attorneys in that state. Walk us through that one again, Gil.
So we do have a shelter-in-place order.
Right.
The shelter-in-place order came through two executive orders, Executive Order 53 and 55. It's punishable by a Class 1 misdemeanor for a violation, which is punishable by up to a year's imprisonment and a fine of up to $2,500. Now, I will say I have not heard of this shelter-in-place order being enforced at all. I think the way that they're moving forwards with this is simply through warning people to go home, as opposed to criminally charging them with anything, because they're going to run into a constitutional roadblock as soon as we wind up in the criminal system.
Gosh, that's crazy. Gil Ambler, independent program attorney in Virginia. Any thing we should know if we're traveling through Virginia and we lawfully have our LTC and we're carrying? Anything we should know traveling through your state?
So long as you have a recognized concealed handgun permit or analogous state license that Virginia recognizes, you're still free to carry that firearm when coming through Virginia as of now. Of course, we should always stay tuned to see what updates might come down.
We're hearing from other states that there's backlogs for carry permits, which affect people who want to carry and protect themselves. Is that the case in Virginia?
Absolutely. This, of course, varies on a county-by-county basis. In Virginia, we have to go through our home county to obtain our license. So people are going through their counties, and what they're finding is that different counties have different backlogs. So some counties are still very effectively processing the concealed handgun permits. Others are way behind, and people are running over the 45 days that is provided by statute that they're supposed to get back, that they're supposed to get the license back to you in.
And backlog, by the way, is no excuse to carry. Well, there was a backlog. I felt I needed to carry. I'm sure I have that right? Paperwork is paperwork.
Well, and what you can still do in Virginia is you can still open carry. So even if your concealed handgun permit hasn't come back, you still have the option to open carry in Virginia. And of course, you just have to be aware of all the slight tweaks that take place in different jurisdictions when you're open carrying a firearm here.
Outstanding. Anything else we need to know in terms of any laws involving the COVID-19 states of emergencies in your state of Virginia?
Right now, it's been pushed through June 10th here in Virginia. That could be extended. It could be knocked back. So we really just need to pay attention right now to what's going to change and see whether that June 10th date is something that they stick to or whether they move that.
Wow, ours was moved to what, May 12th or 13th here, and you're already a month past that in Virginia?
We're already a month past that looking at, and coincidentally, they're pushing it past the Republican primary, which is on June 9th here in Virginia. You could say whether that was intentional or not. I can't answer that, but I know there's some conspiracy theories out there.
Excellent. Glad you joined us from Virginia. Gil Ambler, independent program attorney in Virginia. Thank you for joining us. Good job.
Thanks for having me.
Now, listen, I'm looking at these just massive amounts of comments. It's great to have you here. Colorado, thanks for joining us. Virginia, thank you for joining us. Another one, I'm Sam Malone in Houston, Texas. Obviously, I'm hosting this, but the members of U.S. Law Shield, all right, the U.S. Law Shield family, are trying to answer as many as possible. Pugbro says, when are you going to get to Georgia? Next. In the meantime, go to uslawshield.com/defend and sign up. Let's see how things are going in Ugaland in Georgia next. You're watching the COVID-19 webinar on gun laws and how they affect you with U.S. Law Shield. Welcome back. I'm looking at the comments coming in on our live webinar across America with U.S. Law Shield. Seamus says Metro ATL is here. Well, good. That's good. Let's get advice and legal perspective of how the coronavirus 19 is affecting your gun rights. Matt Kilgo, independent program attorney, U.S. Law Shield, is in Georgia. Matt, thank you so much for joining us across America.
Hello, Sam. How you doing in isolation?
I'm doing outstanding, but I'm in the great state of Texas, so we're never really isolated. Let's start. First of all, how has the, quote, states of emergencies across cities, counties, and states affected y'all in Georgia?
Well, Governor Kemp issued a shelter-in-place order that superseded all local orders. So he took the power out of local counties, local cities, out of their hands, and said, look, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. He described what was critical, what was non-essential, and laid out prescriptions for what to do and where to go if you're critical, what to do and what you can and where you can go if you're non-essential. And we've been living under that order now for 2.5 weeks. It's been extended. Our state of emergency and the shelter in place has been extended here until April 13th. I'm sorry, April 30th. So we're in it up until at least April 30th.
Got it. Ours was just extended through May, and we were checking in other states. It's like Virginia, it's gone past that. So the governor's taken over. He says, I'll call the shots on what's essential. Please tell me that gun stores, those that sell firearms, are considered essential in the great state of Georgia.
They are. When entering his order, he referred to the Homeland Security, Cybersecurity, and Infrastructure Safety Administration, or Security Administration's definition of what is considered critical infrastructure. And gun ranges, gun stores, and those who work in them are considered essential. So they are able to continue to operate. And boy, they are all wiped out. You can't buy a gun for miles around here.
You know, we were just talking to Gil Ambler in Virginia, and they closed the indoor gun ranges to civilians. It's good to know, like in Texas, Georgia also says, come and exercise your Second Amendment rights.
So, some have voluntarily closed. I know that there are some still open. Some of the places where I bought guns in the past 2 weeks are still doing a lot of great business. They're just limiting the number of folks who can come in at one time.
Has anything changed when it comes to gun sales, let's say private sales in the great state of Georgia? I live there, and my buddy lives there, and we're not felons or anything like that, and we just want to sell a handgun. Any changes to those laws?
Private sales, no. There have been no changes to any of our laws in Georgia. As a matter of fact, there are statutes in place that prohibit the state government from changing, from restricting, prohibiting possession of any firearms or ammunition that were legal before the state of emergency went into effect. And those state laws follow very closely the federal laws along those same lines, the Federal Disaster Protection Act, I think, of 2006. So the governor can't do that. No one can do that. And local jurisdictions cannot make firearms restrictions more restrictive than what the state can. They're preempted by law here in Georgia.
Matt Kilgo, independent program attorney, U.S. Law Shield in Georgia. So if you live in Atlanta or places like that, you'll have 24/7 access to a attorney-answered hotline. It could be Matt. So what should I know about traveling through your state during these states of emergencies? Anything I should know as long as I have my LTC, for instance, from Texas?
All the laws still apply. Georgia has reciprocity with 32 states. And with that reciprocity, you can carry in your home, your car, your place of business, any public location, basically. And even without a weapons carry license, you can carry in your home, your car, your place of business, as long as you are otherwise legal to possess. Just like David Katz from Florida told us just a little while ago. You can always carry in your car, openly concealed, loaded, or unloaded.
Big backlog also in Georgia when it comes to LTC?
Massive. I believe that let's talk first in terms of firearms. I know that most of the FFLs that I've been in touch with have been getting delay numbers from the ATF and the NICS process, and they're saying, we'll get back to you April 25th. We'll get back to you April 22nd. So there are some delays with those who've been delayed through the NICS process, but the Council of Superior Court Judges back in March 18th, as I recall, issued an order that said we don't deem the new applications or renewals for weapons carry licenses to be essential services. So in effect, just like in Florida, just like in Colorado, I believe, as Doug said, you can't get a renewal on a weapons carry license. And there are some federal cases, some requests for restraining orders that have been filed. Right now, we're all sitting on our hands.
Wow. So getting your LTC, your license to carry, is not considered an essential service. The people who process that in Georgia, but you can buy the gun. That is an essential service.
Right. You can buy the firearm as long as you're legal. You never have to have a weapons carry license to purchase a firearm in Georgia. Right now, you cannot get your renewals, and you cannot. You can apply, but what they're going to tell you is come back after May 13th, which is when our judicial emergency runs out, or it may be extended as well. I don't know.
Good stuff.
No
Matt
one knows.
Kilgo, independent program attorney, U.S. Law Shield in Georgia. Excellent info. Matt, continue answering that phone. Thank you so much for being part of our webinar across America.
Thanks a lot, Sam.
You got it. Hang on. Let's come back to Texas with another perspective of how COVID-19 and the states of emergencies are affecting your gun rights, things you need to know if you're like-minded, a 2A person. In the meantime, go to the website, sign up, get legal defense for your self-defense. Go to uslawshield.com/defend. We'll come back to Texas and get that insight next. Welcome back to our webinar Across America. I'm Sam Malone. What a treat. We're getting the perspective of independent program attorneys with U.S. Law Shield from Virginia, Colorado, Virginia, Florida. We're everywhere. Let me get to our good friend Richard Hayes. I've known Mr. Hayes for a long time. Independent program attorney, U.S. Law Shield. He is back in our great state of Texas. We started in Texas with Edwin Walker. We wrap it up with Mr. Hayes joining us via Skype. Mr. Hayes, sir, how are you?
Hey, doing great, Sam. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Love it. You are the go-to guy. Let's talk about using our Second Amendment rights when it comes to somebody and there's going to be a theft, there's going to be an issue. And once again, the big issue is scarce items. Somebody reaches into my shopping cart and they take out a paper towel, a roll of toilet paper, a gallon of hand sand, I don't know what. I'm carrying at the time. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but you're the independent program attorney in Texas giving advice to Texans with U.S. Law Shield. What do you say?
Well, I'll give some advice to Texans and I can, with a big, broad brushstroke, give some advice to folks around the country. All of our self-defense laws are organized around a couple of principles that we see show up everywhere, which are immediacy, reasonable belief, and then usually a threat Whether, here in Texas we call it deadly force, some places call it serious physical injury, some places call it great bodily harm, death. We all know what that is. So you have to have a combination of those three in almost any state in order to be justified in using deadly force or deadly physical force. Every state calls it something different. And so what I can tell you is the law definitely favors lives over things. So if you're going to shoot and kill somebody over a roll of toilet paper, a jury is not going to be happy with that when it's just protecting property. Now, I saw someone asking the question earlier, and I've been getting this question at my firm. Hey, what if somebody who is suspected of having COVID-19, coughs on me? Would you be allowed to use deadly physical force then? Probably not, unless they're really intentionally trying to inflict a serious bodily injury or death against you. Now, I will tell you, we don't have a case on this. We have some cases, with people trying to intentionally infect people with AIDS, against police officers, things like that, that the courts have said, hey, you know what, that is deadly force. So if you were to meet that amount of force with force, maybe it would be justified. I will tell you, though, it's going to go in front of a jury.
Right. And we've seen stories, Mr. Hayes, of kids being goofy and licking vegetables in the supermarket. And that, of course, is silliness. Leave it to the manager. Or if a guy was arrested for being a Grumpenstein and he was coughing on people, leave it to the manager. Best advice. Right, Mr. Hayes?
Yeah, we all get our license to carry, our concealed weapons permits, or whatever your state calls it, to protect ourselves. And whenever we're using force or deadly force, we want to make it a last resort. We want to appear to be the reasonable person, the Obi-Wan Kenobi, if you will, in this situation. You don't want to interject yourself in the scenario.
Now let's talk about LTC, which is license to carry here. Some states and the independent program attorneys we've talked to, you don't need it. They have open carry. In Texas, in our great state, you need a license to carry, whether you're going to open carry or concealed, right, Mr. Hayes?
That's correct. Yeah, there's a spectrum. We have states that are basically you have to have a card just to purchase a gun. You got to keep it in your house. The other end of the spectrum, we have constitutional carry. And, here in Texas, we're somewhere in between. Edwin Walker was talking about it earlier. There was some talk about non-licensed people carrying handguns generally in public, not allowed right now in Texas. Nobody's evacuating from anything. But it's a state-by-state issue, so you need to know the law in your state. You may or may not need a license to carry generally in public if you're in Oklahoma, West Virginia, one of these constitutional carry states. But if you don't have your license to carry or your permit, whatever your state calls it, and they prohibit it, you really need to go through this step so that you can carry legally.
And by the way, how are the processing going on for license to carry in some of the states we heard? Backlog. How are things in our state, the Lone Star State?
So the Texas DPS has not slowed down processing handgun license applications. They deemed that was essential. So we're still business as usual. I was talking to a client, last week, got their license to carry without delay. The weird issue that we're seeing, and this is nationwide, is a lot of people's driver's licenses are expiring. And when they're going to the gun stores to try to buy their handgun, what we're seeing is, hey, you have an expired document. You can't buy a gun from us. And so, that's one of those things that would make you think, hey, it seems really innocuous, but all of these little ticky-tacky regulations all across the board, you never know how they're going to come back and affect us as gun owners trying to do things the right way, trying to defend ourselves and defend our families.
So even though, Mr. Hayes, independent program attorney in Texas where I am, even though you've got your driver's license, your DL, but it's expired, can't legally purchase the handgun, correct, at the store?
Yeah, that's correct. And you might be able to use a combination of other documents like a passport plus, maybe a vehicle registration. You might be able to use a combination of other documents to purchase your from a federal firearms licensee. That's what we're talking about, not a private sale. But if your driver's license is expired, if that's the only document you were going to rely on, you wait in a line, you finally get up there, you're up there to purchase your gun, and then your driver's license is expired, you're going to be very out of luck.
Richard Hayes, independent program attorney in Texas. There was a huge gun run that started about 4-5 weeks ago. People who never owned a semi-automatic pistol, Glocks and Smith & Wessons and Berettas were running to the store. You're the independent program attorney, U.S. Law Shield in Texas. What's the number one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time buyer of a semi-automatic pistol?
All right. I've been talking to a lot of new gun owners. So the tips that I have for those folks is, one, learn the law of your state. You heard from a couple of different folks tonight. Learn the laws in your state. Find a trustworthy source of information to stay up to date on the law, because ignorance of the law is not an excuse. And then practice. Be proficient. Go to the range. Practice with your firearm, but also understand that, if you pull the trigger, you need to have a plan in place. If it's 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, somebody kicks down your door and you shoot a perpetrator, that's a bad time to come up with a plan. You need to think about what's going to happen after, and be prepared for the fallout, the legal fallout.
And that's kind of where U.S. Law Shield comes in, because the legal fallout is the ability to call 24/7 if you are, gosh forbid, involved in a shooting, right? You make the call right away. The number's on the back of the card.
Yeah, thankfully I'm not on the hotline this week. My associate Leslie, she's working it, but yeah, we're staying busy. I'll tell you that.
I hear you. All right, get back to work. It's been crazy nonstop, from the messages coming in, the emails, the phones ringing. Richard Hayes, independent program attorney in Texas. Sir, thank you for joining us live on our webinar across America.
All right, Sam. Thank you so much. Good to talk to you. Good
to have you aboard. Sir, everyone else, as we wrap things up, jump aboard the website. You can put up on the screen there, uslawshield.com/defend. That is where you go online to join, to become a member of U.S. Law Shield, to have that powerful protection of these U.S. Law Shield independent attorneys in your back pocket, available to reach them during these incredibly uncertain and stressful and anxiety-filled times. Once again, uslawshield.com/defend. That wraps up our webinar coast to coast. You can catch the recording if you missed any part. Keep the comments coming. Members of the U.S. Law Shield family are answering them as quickly as they can. Live from Houston, Texas, I'm Sam Malone.
See.